Hey guys, what is going on everybody? My name is Fabian. Most of you know me as the Dizzy Viper or also Dizzy Everydays on Facebook. Recently I got asked how I made this recreation of a short animation by Ash Thorp, which is called Awaken Akira, which was absolutely stunning, so huge respect to Ash Thorp there, he did a really great job. I recreated it using Cinema 4D and Octane, so the same programs as he used to make his animation. I will obviously leave a link in the description down below to the animation in case you wanna watch it. So I got asked how I created this, and I don't have too much time to recreate it on video, but I will explain as detailed as possible how I made it. So I hope that is good enough. So let's get right into the file. So as you can see, the scene itself is not that big, it's actually rather small. As buildings, I used some buildings of the Warzone kit by Kitbash 3D, which I will also leave a link in the description down below. It's available for sale for, I believe, $200, which is not as expensive as you think, because there are a lot of buildings in it, all destructed and perfectly UV'd and stuff. It's just great. And the other buildings are buildings by Dosh. And this is the Dosh Skyscraper Pack Volume 1, I think. And those are some rather simple buildings, but they are really good to use in such small scale scenes, because as I said, they are quite simple, you don't have to texture them a lot, and it's just very comfortable to use them. So next is the destruction, like the small pieces falling off the tower right here, that you can see, like right here. That's very simple actually, I can show you how I made that. I basically just took a cube that I made in a shape like this, something like that, put it into Cloner, and I believe I set it to, oh yeah, the grid array obviously, and I set it to like 10, 10 and 10, so we have a couple of them. So now let's just scale this up a bit to, let's say, 10,000 centimeters. Then scale this up as well, and this one to, let's say, 5,002. So we have a bunch. Okay, that's a little too much, I think. Let's do 5, 5 and 5. It should be enough. Okay. Next we use a random effector. So they all have random positions now. Yeah. And what I used here was like a very high variation in the x-axis. So when I use like 5,000, as you can see, we have a very high variation in length. Like afterwards it will be like, sorry, afterwards it will be like this, falling from the tower. So then here we also had a quite high variation in depth, which was, I believe, I'm not too sure, like something like 2,500, yeah. And also here about 1,500, something like this. Alright. Next we also need to make a random scale, obviously. I didn't uniform the scale because I actually wanted them to be different length, different width and different depth. Sorry, it's a little hard to say for me. So we have something like this. And next also the rotation, of course, so we just play with that a bit, because I mean, pieces don't fall from a tower very straight. So that's basically how I model the pieces. It's really simple, and as you can see in the file here, I used multiple cloners and multiple different pieces that actually don't fall from the tower itself, because the tower itself is inside a fog volume, as you can see. This is the gray box here. And if I would place them inside or completely inside, some of them would just not be visible. So I just put them in front, made them a little smaller, so it actually looks like they're falling from the building still. Those are those pieces here. So next up, the fog volume. I used as you can see, a quite small fog volume. I always use a small fog volume because my PC can't handle big ones. So I tend to model my whole scene and then put everything into a null object, scale it down to like 0.1%, something like that, and then, or to 1% rather, and then put the fog volume in, so I can actually use a small fog volume. And as you can see, the fog volume has not a high density. It has a density of 2.8, which is not really, you don't really need a density of 2.8, it's just playing around with the density, and I came up with 2.8 for a reason. And for the color I used a sort of beige tone, like it's a very bright orange tone, but also very light. Because if you put too much color into a fog volume, it will turn completely orange, for example. Next up, I'm just gonna make the fog volume invisible for a second, so you can see what I did with the lights. Alright, so, and I also will put away that tower really quick, like this, yeah. So as you can see, as lights, we have one big light, which is a red light, which casts this red color right here, and this red color right here. But also, if you look at this light, which when the tower is on will completely cover that whole leftover sky, right? And that light is actually not red, but it's a float texture with a very low temperature, meaning it's casting a somewhat orange tone. Which you can see in the original movie or in the original video, that the bottom here is really dark red or really red tone, and the corner up here is rather orange. So I needed to find a way to do that. And last but not least, the sky. As you might think that the sky is red, you're probably right about that. The sky is only red on this side, but if you look at the other side, on this side here, wait, let me just open Octane really quick so you can see. So as you can see right here, if you look there, you can see that I have a gradient on it that puts half of the sky red and half of the sky black. And the reason for that is, if the sky was red on this side as well, I would have a very bright red cast on this side of the buildings as well. And you don't want that to happen, because you want it to be quite dark on the side you look at. Except here, I put another light right between those two buildings, as you can see, like right here, and it's very, very thin. And the reason I did that is not because I wanted to cast a red light, really. It was really just to point out some of the detail on that house. And I think worked out quite well. So that's about it, what I did in cinema. And I will now show you what I did in Photoshop to get all the dust and sparks and stuff like that. So right inside of cinema, as you can see, I did not do very much in it because it wasn't really necessary. But what I did was I found this texture on Google of a cloud, which was this texture right here. I used this cloud in some of my everydays already. At this point I want to thank Stutzor, who showed me this texture, because I was desperately looking for a good cloud texture, and he was the one who helped me out with this texture. So thank you for that. And but as this clouds and smoke is actually white and gray, it would just mess up the color or the clean color of my render, right? So I had to make a color overlay over that cloud so it turns somewhat orange or red. So that's what I did, without changing the background, obviously, because we need that black background so it can actually subtract the background. And then I just put this into different angles. Wait, let me just show you. As you can see, I just put it into different angles, deleted, and erased all the borders, or most of them. And I always put the type of mix to just random mixing types, just what looked the best. I know it's not really the best way to do it, but it looks good at the end, so I thought it didn't really matter. And last but not least, the sparks that fly out of the house, right? Wait, where's my... there it is. These sparks right here, those are also a texture from Google. Just if you Google sparks overlay, something like that, you will find it. Essentially what it is, it's just a texture of sparks on a black background. And the original texture to that is this one right here. just a campfire. And yeah, that's basically it. I also put an overlay on that, so it actually turned red as well, so I don't get orange sparks because I don't want that either. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't really do a tutorial on it, but I just didn't have enough time to make it. I hope it did help somewhat. If you have any more questions, just let me know and I will try to answer them as well as possible. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and peace out.